What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday.
Hey there. I am so glad you're on this day. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad. How you doing? Hey there, Facebook. Hey there, Instagram. Hey there, YouTube. Let me say the reason I went, it's not like I don't know you guys, but my camera went out right before I did this. And so I'm looking to see where am I looking now because I've got to use the camera on the computer. Not too bad. It's not too terrible. So this has been a challenging last 3 days. I lost someone very important to me, and we've all lost people. And when we lose them, it has us thinking about our lives. It's thinking about how are we living. We're so easily can say, well, if he or she had just done X, Y, and Z, then their life would have been better. I know they were so wonderful. They should have blah, 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 blah. Therefore, but the grace of. So what he had me thinking a lot about this week is, am I living for me or am I living for my things? Am I truly doing what my soul tells me I need and want to do, especially at this time in my life, so that I can look back with no regrets? I can look back and say I did my best. I can look back and say more than just tried. Really made me think about that. And what I'm always talking about, and I always think about it, honoring yourself. Well, that's what tonight we're going to talk about, and other things, because you know how conversation works, especially when you're with someone who is as intelligent and as wise and as actually very smart and savvy and clever as Stephen Adams, manager producer, is. So we're going to hit on this, which is interesting when you think about people in our industry and just where the world is right now. A friend of mine, what did she say today? What was it? What she said? We were taking a walk. It's beautiful, very crisp. I'm in the east, and it's very crisp. We went through this large park and we were walking, and she mentioned to me, if everyone could take a moment just to come out, commune with nature when it's cold, when it's hot, whatever the temperature, and to get away from the day for a moment, how much more clearly we might think of things when we look and we see nature. We were walking today. It's winter. Hey there, moon crab. It's not winter. It's coming out of winter. Very cold. Spring, but there are still dead leaves on the ground. It's a forest. It's parts of the forest. There's still dead leaves on the ground, and so as you look at it, one might say, "Oof, those are dead leaves. Those are ugly. I don't want to see them." But no, it's the ending of one life preparing for the beginning and the beginning of another. It's the cycle of life as we look in Mother Nature, the cycle of life. How so often we think about, oh, things are going bad right now. Oh no, no, no. But maybe something is happening to make you rethink what you are doing so you can accomplish what you truly want. So you lose a friend, you start thinking, well, I'm always thinking about these things, but you really start to think about them. So I want to introduce you to my guest tonight. As I told you, I know we're going to talk about other things too. Mr. Stephen Adams. He's so talented, so wonderful, such an important person in the entertainment industry with everything that he does. And, I could start to ramble, so I'm not going to. Let me introduce you to Stephen Adams. Hey now.
Wow.
Do you know that guy?
I'd like to meet him.
He looks like he's about something, doesn't he?
He's done a couple of things.
How you doing, Stephen?
I am doing well. The weather is good again. The business is always challenging, but it is good, and we're up for the task.
That's right. And the reason why you saw me go like this when Stephen said the weather's going good is because Stephen is in Los
I know.
Angeles, where it's probably what 80 degrees today, and I am
It was
back
about that
where it is much, much cooler.
in the southeast.
Southeast, right, right, right. Where it's still beautiful. I'm moving my mic around. Can you hear me clearly, Stephen?
Yes, I
You guys
can.
hear me? Okay, cool. Hey, everybody. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So, Stephen, so you know what?
I feel like you should be. I feel like you should be the DJ of a late night jazz show.
I should come on and say, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that fabulous? So, grab hold of the one you love.
Play Misty for
You
me.
play Misty for me. Ooh, so many ways, right?
That was a throwback to our
Yes, it
childhoods.
was. Yes, it was. You've been on my show several times, and every time you're on, we talk about the career, what you're doing, the management, the people you work with. But I've always found what's fascinating is you. And I really like for you to talk about where you come from. Tell us what you're doing, and then take us back because people would want to know how you got to where you are.
Gosh, it's a funny thing because someone said this once that, when you look back at your life, everything sort of dovetails together and it all makes sense because one thing led to another. And I guess everything does work that way, but I didn't experience it that way. I always wanted to be in entertainment. And since I was a child, it was just my dream.
Ah,
And for some reason, which was unbeknownst to me at the time, and I think I may have shared this with you, but at the time, I was not encouraged to do that.
mhm.
My father was dead set against it, and I thought, he knew better than I did, and so I just did what I was told. And but even in the back of my mind, I always wanted to do these things. And so I did a short film in sixth grade, a little, stop motion
Mm.
animation film, and I was a film festival judge in middle school. And in high school, I was fortunate enough to have a cinematography class, and we made a film on 16 millimeter. And so in my mind, I was ready to go to Hollywood at 14. So I'm ready to go. And my father was like, "Yeah, no, that's not happening. You're going to do something like finance or banking or law."
Mm.
And I tried, and it was we the comprom. I was very young. I started school at 4, and I skipped a grade, so I was
Really?
15 in my senior year. Yeah, and
Ah,
so there were some other factors, which was that, a 15-year-old contemplating going to college, that just was
wow.
kind of scary to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was already having enough issues in high school with being that young, but the idea of going to where people were in their 20s, I was like, I don't know if this is just too
Yeah.
much for me. And it was a different era. There weren't, people didn't. Um, didn't do well with kids who were sort of, advanced academically and but
Mm.
needed to grow up. Like I was still 15, and it wasn't really, it was like, oh, you're so lucky. I'm like, yeah, no, you don't know. To be 15 a 15-year-old with 18-year-olds was really bad.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't have to explain why. Teenagers are, it's
Cruel
like
at
15.
times.
Why is he even daring to stand near us? Let alone speaking. So,
And you're probably smarter than a lot of them, and they really hated that.
well, they hated me because I mean, I was in their grade and I was significantly younger than them. And so it
Mhm.
was not a good time, but I had my, film obsession and my dreams of what I wanted to do. But I wound up studying broadcasting and film at San Francisco State because I had a, film department there. And that was something I could do while I was still living at home at 16. And so because I just was not ready to, move into a
Of
dorm with
course.
people, adults, basically young adults.
Yeah.
But I wound up doing that, and then people just weren't ready. They were like, what are you going to do as a child broadcaster? Now that would have been the bomb, like to be
Hmm.
young and interviewing people. It's but that was not the case then. They're like, come back when you're 30. I was like, that's going to be a long time. So I wound up putting all that on the back burner and going into banking and finance, and I worked at Bank of America. Then I worked for a company called Deke Pereira, which was a foreign exchange company. And then I went to work for a global growth fund. So, and that was international. And that was always something else I wanted. I always wanted to have a career that was international. So it was like, this is interesting. And so
Mm.
we traded currency and against one another. So like if something happened in one country, we would know what the impact would be on another currency.
Mhm. Mm.
So I'd
Mhm.
watch the news and I could, in my, just make notes and tell you what was going to happen in another economy. It was very, it was interesting, but it was like still not the dream. And then one day when I was 24, even though I'd been doing all this stuff for like, while I was in college, I'd been like in banking and finance for 8 years at 24.
Before you go further, don't leave that point, but I just want to mention this. We're talking to a manager producer about what he was doing that he didn't really want to do. And I think it's very important because a lot of times we all get sidelines before we come to where we want to go. So continue, Stephen.
Yeah, and it's important to note that. But I will say this, I wound up quitting my job and just something clicked to me and I decided to give into my instincts for the first time in my life, like give myself permission to be what I do, what I wanted to do, and
Mhm.
be what I wanted to be. And I remember literally meditating on this, and I woke up with this voice in my ear just literally saying, quit your job. Like I woke up at 6 in the morning, it was like, quit your job today.
Whoa.
And that was the most daring thing I had ever done because I was on that advanced track. I was, always the youngest person and doing all these things. And I just did it. And what, well, something just fell in the other room
Oh,
on that
I get,
note.
I guess that was confirmation somehow.
That was confirmation. I did it. And it's like, yeah, let me fall off the wall. Um, so I did that. And I didn't quite know what I was going to do. Then I got this idea that I would work in my favorite restaurant. And I called my father and I said, so look, I've quit my job. And he's like, great. So what are you doing now? What's your new position? I said, well, I decided to leave the growth fund. He goes, yes. And so what's happening? Are you going to go to grad school? What's happening? I'm like, no, I am, I'm going to work in a restaurant. He's like, wait a minute. So you're managing, restaurants? I'm like, no, I am going to be a waiter. Not a, no, he said, you're going to be I said, I'm working in a restaurant. He's like, working in a restaurant. So I don't understand. Are you going to be a waiter? I'm like, no, I don't know how to be a waiter. I'm going to be a busboy. And he hung up the phone because he was
Oh.
like, I don't even know who this is. And
Oh.
the next time we spoke, he said, well, you're on your own. I don't know what you're doing, but this sounds crazy to me. And it was crazy. It was the best thing I ever did because I wound up working in a restaurant where the clientele
Hmm.
was, um, it
Gypsies,
was, I
right?
don't know, what's that?
Gypsies, right?
You remember this? Yeah, I've told you some
Yes.
of this. And it wasn't gypsies, but they came in, and the clientele was basically people who were going to see shows, whether they were
Ah.
shows at theater, the opera, the symphony, strip clubs, or uh, rock and roll joints, whatever. So you had all this mix of people from every walk of life
Mm.
together. So you'd have people riding up on motorcycles next to people who would come in a limousine, and so it was kind of wild. And strippers in between. It was something. Artists. And so I learned from the clients, because as
Mm.
opposed to being somebody sitting in that mix, I was working with them. So I learned a lot. And yes, gypsies came in, and that was when the things got wild.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then how do you make it through there to Hollywood? How does this happen?
Well, they that was the interesting thing. Like, had a goal that I wanted to start with. That freedom that I got from working in a restaurant, I wound up, starting to experiment on do work on film sets and TV, independent television, stuff like that. I was even offered a job in a porn set. I didn't take that job, you know, because I started to realize that they wanted me to be in the movies, and I was like, well,
Oh.
this is not going to happen. Of course, at this point in life, I was like, well, maybe I should have had a couple of those films under my belt. I don't know, but
That there are others who have, and look at them now.
there are others who have, and they've done fine. No, I mean, it was not my direction.
Of
But,
course not.
as you can imagine, like, my life had been pretty sheltered up until then, so I kind of got, a good taste of life. And the thing with the people coming into that show were that they were traveling from around the world to the audience was traveling from around the world to watch this performance of these people who were doing flamenco. And
Mhm. Oh,
the
I love
ki-
flamenco.
and there was a performer named El Chocolate and a woman named Fernanda. And you can find their footage on YouTube. They both were like considered some of the greatest flamencos in the world.
Mm.
And they were pretty wild. I mean, it was a wild audience, very difficult to handle. They were Roma, so they spoke Catalan for the most part,
Mm.
and I speak French, so I started communicating with them. And uh, at a certain point, they decided that I was the only person they wanted to talk to.
Mm.
So that was a mixed blessing, because the management was like, well, you have to be here with these people all day long. I'm like, well, I can't be here two shifts in a row and not get, I wasn't getting tipped. So they said, well, we'll give you, 10%. I said, no, this has got to be 15, because what, you're making a lot of money. There was a lot, it was packed with people all day and night. So they wanted me doing two shifts a day. I said, it was got to be 15%. So they said yes. So I came in, and the people were, they would not, imagine going to a room where there's 50 people yelling at you at one time,
Wow. Stephen,
all
Stephen,
trying.
Steve,
Etienne,
at the end.
or Garçon,
Go, 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 go,
So
go,
I was
go,
like,
go.
okay, this is getting to be too crazy, too wild. And, this went on for a few weeks until it just got to be intolerable. And I remember going out one night, and I was very, very hungover the next day. And I came in, and they were like, you're late. I'm like, so fire me. And the manager was like, whoa. And so I went to this dining room, and all these people are yelling. They're sitting around the table. At the head of the table is Fernanda, the queen, and the queen of the flamencos. And then at the other end was El Chocolate. So I went to this room, and I just went in there, and I stood listening to everybody yelling at me. And I said, shut up, be quiet. And the room went silent. And everybody turned and looked at me like, who's this? And what's his next move? And so I was like, what
Oh.
is my next move? And so I thought, well, you're in it now, buddy. So I said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to wait on Fernanda first because she is the queen. Then I'm going to go from her left side to El Chocolate because he is the king. And then I'm going to go around the other side of the table. I'm going to end on the right hand side of Fernanda because she is the queen. And they looked at me like, okay. And so the room was like, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And then all of a sudden, Fernanda looked at me and says, come to me, vieni aquí, mi principe. Tu es puro gitano. She said, you're a pure gypsy and you're my son. And then she said, now you do everything the way he said it. And when he's done, I'm going to pass my hat. You're going to put money in it and I will pay him. So I was like, okay, I'm learning how to set parameters first, with all due respect to my father, and then with these people. And what happened in each, in that case, I got rewarded. So, by the way, I didn't tell the management I was getting paid because I'm not stupid.
And they wouldn't
So,
want you to.
no, I think they would have preferred not to be paying me, but I
No, I mean the
decided to take
gypsies.
that
They didn't
money.
want you to let them know. They want you to get your
Oh
money,
no, I
all
would. I
you.
was like, I something that's like just that's between me and them,
That's
and they
right.
were they were staying well out of the way of the room, and so we did our thing, and we got to be really really close, and I wound up working with them like lunch and dinner, and then when the show opened, they were like, "You got to come to the show," so I'd go to the shows and bring my friends. So pretty much, I was sucked into their life for like 12 weeks, and was with them, from lunch, took a break, then come back and do the dinners, then go to the shows, then come back, and they would play flamenco until like dawn and dance and sing. And these people were, well into their 60s at the time, the leads of the show. I don't know where they got the energy from to do all of that and then get up and then perform every day. It was like, it was incredible. And, you know, we would just close the windows down and let them stay as long as they wanted. I'm like, just sell them the alcohol before 2 o'clock and don't worry about it. Just pour it until it's time to go home. Don't worry about it.
So, but how did you get to Hollywood? So how does that happen?
Well, at the end of this experience, they were leaving, and Fernanda said, "We want you to come on the road with us, and this is the tour. And we're going to go to New York, then we're going to Europe, and we want you to be with us throughout the whole thing." And I was like, "Wow, that sounds amazing." But I'm going to go. I've made my mind up. I want to go to Hollywood. And she said, "You're breaking my heart, but you will always have the luck of the gypsies." And she kissed me, and that was the last time I saw her.
Oh,
But I left with a whole lot of money.
yes, you did.
But yeah, no, and the funny thing is I still feel that. I mean, I was I was 24. I still feel that connection,
I feel
and
it.
I feel that blessing. And, I never forgot that experience. It changed my life. It made me much more confident in terms of like making a decision that I wanted to make, and then the universe responded to it. And so yeah, then I decided to go to Hollywood, and that was the beginning of the next adventure, where the mind and the spirit have to align, because Hollywood is a place where you're challenged.
What do you mean the mind and the spirit have to align?
Well, because
In
sometimes
what
people
way?
say people want things, but they're not necessarily spiritually aligned to get them, or they're willing to do bad things to get their goals. And I think there's something about this business that either people find ways of succeeding through darkness or through light, and we've seen that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you want to have longevity, you have to make certain decisions. And if you want your spirit to be intact, you need to make certain decisions. And I have seen people make very poor decisions and destroy their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Some are no longer in this business.
Hmm.
Others are no longer living. And, others are successful, but they are monstrous people.
Hmm.
So, and others are successful because they made the decision not to sell their soul.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's necessary.
No, it is not. It's not. I think it takes you down a path that is dark. It takes you down a path where you lose yourself, or you don't like what
Yeah.
you don't like what you see and what you've become. I've seen that too. I've had that too. People aren't here right now. And then those who and those who try and live in, what am I trying to say? I'm sorry, I'm thinking of someone, and I want to not mention names, but so many times the decisions we make are not about what we want, it's about what somebody else wants for us or what we're afraid of. And so then we don't spend time enough to make a clear decision of what we
Mhm.
want in our lives. Not what I want right in this very second, but what we want in our lives that bring us to clear thinking of what is necessary in this second to move on.
Well, there's a lot of things about Hollywood that are remain very alluring and very deceptive. And I think one of them is that, you have this template for Hollywood, which was formed in the 1900s
Hmm.
and really locked itself in the 1920s, which is endless youth,
Hmm.
lots of money, constant party. And, I mean, look, this is the template for all the alluring parties that we hear about, all the things. This is really the basic template. Champagne pops, everything's golden, you are beautiful and successful, and we're all rich and young and, have everything we want forever.
Right. And we can do what we want forever, and it's going to last forever. Well, yes, forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's strange that that template has, I mean, it tyrannizes people. It's why people get, their faces done, their bodies done, they're taking
Hmm.
things, they're doing all sorts of things to try to remain young as opposed to accepting the movement of time. And well, I think there's a difference between trying to remain a young movie star and becoming an actor and an artist who is interpreting the movement of time as a human
Hmm.
being.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, the
I
movement of
mean, it's
time.
funny when people say that people are brave because they don't have surgery. It's like, really?
That's the beauty of life. I worked hard for every wrinkle that I have, every gray
Yeah.
hair that I have in my head. I worked hard for that. You of course know Matt Stevens, my wonderful manager. He's so terrific. I'm working on the show now, and Steven, I'm such a much better actor than I was when I was younger. The pains, the challenges, the wins, the loss, all of that have come into a soup in order to make me a better actress and a more a better human being, I feel like.
Well, I think all strength comes from resistance.
Hmm.
Nobody learns how to walk by being carried.
That's right.
You got to do the work. And you're going to wind up skinning your knees and your elbows, and maybe you even bust your lip. And you run to your mama, but the mama or your daddy puts you back on the floor and says, "You keep going."
Do it again. How'd you learn how to ride a bicycle?
The same thing. It's how do you
That's
do
right.
anything?
Hmm.
So, where do we think that with these lessons that we learned from the minute we got onto the earth, that things are going to be any different when we get older? It's not. You just learn, you have more strength than you did then, and you learn to cope with things. I mean, it's amazing. We talk about loss. The first time you experience loss, it seems like the bottom of the world falls out.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that it gets easier to deal with it, but you have some sense as you experience life that you will survive.
Hmm.
Uh, However difficult that journey may be, you know that it's somewhere through that darkness you'll come out on the other side.
You have
And
better
it's
tools and experiences to know that.
yeah, doesn't mean it's easy,
No, no.
but you know, I mean, but yeah, I mean, this is what makes people strong. I mean, it's why black people are amazing because there's automatically so much more that
Hmm.
has to be navigated.
Hmm.
And and if the goal is to remain strong and graceful, then you have a lot to work with and work through.
Yes. Especially right now with what is happening around in our country. Right now, of what we need to keep in mind about who we are, because there is an element that's trying to erase who we've actually, what we've actually contributed or been a part of in this country.
It's really sad because it's not possible to erase the truth.
Mm-mm.
And the question really for me is, why do you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's never going to work, first of all.
No.
And what it's doing is taking us full circle to a time before civil rights where everything that you needed to know was taught in your home, and you knew fully well that whatever you were learning outside of the home was for somebody else's agenda.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely something to come home and talk to parents about. This is what I heard. We did a lot of talking in our house,
Yeah,
so we could be
same here.
clear and share ideas. And then I have our parents listen to our ideas, which was wonderful to teach the mind to think.
I saw a really great documentary at the Pan African Film Festival. The name is escaping me, but I will find it. Um, it was about teachers, and it was done by a professor at Morehouse, and she did the history of the black teacher in America. And
Mm.
there was something in there that I did not know that um, that when schools were quote unquote desegregated, black kids were moved into white schools. White kids were never moved into black schools.
Mm-hmm.
A. B. When this happened, 100,000 black teachers lost their jobs.
Because there weren't
I
any
was not
kids
aware of
there.
that.
Ah.
Yeah.
Segregation, there is
So then you wound up in a school where nobody gave a damn about you, and they were
right.
teaching you from a perspective that has nothing to do with your well being.
Yes. Yes. We asked for equal. We didn't ask to be, we asked to participate and for and equality. We didn't ask to be taken advantage of. We didn't want to become you. We just wanted to share in knowledge, share in more possibilities that were afforded for you than they were for us. I just recently found out that 650,000 Black women have lost their jobs in the last year. I didn't know that that was that many.
Yeah, well, they started and they got to 350 in 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
500,000 women were the most educated segment of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Losing their jobs is not just uh, there's so much that you could say about that, but the sad thing is that they've lost more than jobs. I mean, the culture has lost more than people with
Yes.
jobs.
Oh,
They've
yes.
lost the positive influence that black women always bring.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have.
And
And that
the
family and
nurturing,
that love thing we always bring.
yeah. And the thing is, I think America owes such a debt to black women, and it just doesn't, it doesn't ever do right. It's like,
Yes. What do you think about, because I start off the show, I want to shift a little bit to which is something that you kind of talked about when you talked about your journey to becoming, coming to Hollywood. And that is standing up for yourself, for speaking up for yourself.
yes.
What is it we have to gain? What is it we have to lose if we don't do it? What are the challenges that are set forth in life for?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, when I got my job at that agency, you know, when I got to Hollywood, I was very uh, excited, and uh, I had sort of networked my way into the job. And the interesting thing is that they hired me because of all my financial experience.
Mhm.
So my father was not wrong. I just didn't understand that I needed to connect these two things.
Uh-huh.
Because at the end of the day, it was very quickly clear to me that Hollywood is a business
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and a multi-billion dollar business. I mean, look at what's going on right now. How much money are we talking about? Where Larry Ellison is offering $102 billion
My God.
for Warner Brothers. So if because people keep saying Hollywood is dead, I'm like, really? Because I don't see anybody paying that much money for much else.
Mm. Mm.
That is something to be paid attention to. $102 billion.
Mm.
Yeah. So, my point about, learning, what happened is that because I'd sort of networked into this job and I didn't know that most people that got jobs as assistants were, assistants. They went to the mailroom and everything. I wound up on a desk in Hollywood in 6 weeks working for an agent.
Mm.
And that was not really supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And once these guys realized that I was not from some kind of Hollywood family, they went crazy, the other assistants. And
Oh,
they
wow,
started
that you
to,
had.
yeah, started working to undermine and they were doing a pretty darn good job uh, because they were making my life miserable.
Hmm.
And the head assistant was like, well, when another assistant quit, well, Steve's so great, he can just cover two agents instead of one. And I was like, well, do I get a raise? No, no, no. I mean, you're just. I'm like, well, I'm doing administration for two people instead of one. That's a lot of work. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's temporary. Then when the receptionist quit, the decision was made that I would become the receptionist as well.
Wow.
And so in my mind, I felt like I had gone backwards.
Mm.
That I had left being an executive, then a waiter, and then now I've come here thinking I was still assisting, but now I'm a
Receptionist.
receptionist, with all due respect. And I started getting really angry and bad attitude, and it was a lot of work, and it was just like the days were grinding on, and I'm reading all these scripts and trying to figure out how to get through all this work, and I was very resentful.
Mm.
And I called my father and I said, I think I've made a mistake and these people are humiliating me and I've got to answer the phone now and blah 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 blah. And he listened to me for a while and he said, it's interesting that you are sitting here complaining about answering the phone at a company where every single person they know has to speak to you first, and you don't see it as an opportunity. He said, because your ego's in the way and you're getting what you want and you can't see it.
Mm.
He said, because you're telling me you're reading every script, you're reading a large number of the scripts in that office. Everybody has to ask you questions. You have all the information, and you're dealing with every single individual that speaks to you first, and you have a chance to make an impression on them, but you're meeting them with anger and resentment, and that's your reputation.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God. Did you hear that, everyone? Wow. Very, very deep, Stephen. Very true.
He said, so when you decide to grow up,
Mm.
give me a call. And
Oh,
again, click.
yeah.
Because my father is quick to be like, we're done. And I'm lucky he's still with us. He's 96 years old.
Oh, wow. Oh, how wonderful. Okay,
Yeah.
so then what happens? Because now I'm like all intrigued.
Well, first of all, I was infuriated because he pulled the lollipop of anger out of my mouth. And, it's addictive.
Mm-hmm.
I was like sucking that sweet, bitter nicotine of anger, self-pity,
Righteousness.
and me. And they're just doing this to me. And and as soon as he did this, I was like, it was like somebody gave me a bracing slap. And I was like, I knew he was right, but it
Wow.
took me like
Wow.
an entire weekend to wrestle with the letting go of this demon that I started loving.
Mm.
And uh because anger is a demon in a way, it's an indicator, but you can't stay with it too long.
Mhm.
There's certain feelings you have that are meant to be weather vanes. What's the new direction I need to go in to get past this? Envy is another one. You know, you have to examine yourself, your heart. Why are people can spend their entire lives envious of other people to the point where they will work to destroy them without doing a bloody thing to uplift themselves.
Mhm. Mm.
The movie Mozart is about that with
Mhm.
Salieri,
Mhm.
recognizing his own inferiority of gifts, and rather than exalting someone else's, had to spend his rest of his life destroying that person.
Mm.
People do that. But so there's a lot to learn about what is inside of us as people, and what is allowed, what we have to learn from it, and what we have to master, because
Mhm.
everything inside of us is not good. you
Mhm.
know we're capable
That's
of both
we're very
sides.
complicated.
We're complicated. I mean, children do terrible things. They have to be taught morality. They're
Mm.
innocent, but they sometimes do very mean things, and they don't, and because they're intrinsically selfish. And we as adults have to learn to transcend and mature and bring more to the table than what I want, what me all day long.
Mhm.
So once I got over that fury that he was right, I knew he was right. But when I got back on Monday, it was like an adventure. I got in really early, but opened the office, had everything organized, answered all the questions, and and made everything a pleasure. And it was a pleasure. And then, knowing this was like, oh, you got a little clout here, buddy. You know how to help. You can help people. And so I did this for a while,
Oh.
uh, for about 6 months, and then I went on vacation. I didn't have any money, so I wound up, because I went from making, I mean, they paid me virtually nothing, $300 a week. I was making
Yeah.
$300 a day in the restaurant. It's like, are you kidding me? So what is this? So I was just sitting on my balcony, and the phone kept ringing. Where's this? Where's that? I'm like, don't be resentful. Just help them. And when I came back 2 weeks later, they were like, yeah, we realize you do a lot of work, and we're going to hire some more people. I'm like, oh, great. And they wound up hiring two agents, but they didn't promote me, and they hired a receptionist.
Mm.
I got a raise and, started doing management in the office, but they weren't ready for me to have any juice.
Mm.
Um, but I was like, that's cool. Because at this point, every phone call was for me. The people didn't want to talk to anybody but me. And, I'd have an answer for them. So they were
Mm.
just like, it's crazy. So by the time another 6 months went by, I got a job offer. And that offer was from a manager who represents Lawrence Fishburne and other people. And she said, I've watched you, and are, you know what you're doing, and I'd like you to come here and work with us.
Oh, I
So I did.
love it.
Yeah. And so that was another adventure, but it was, you learn things, because
Mhm.
half of the battle, I think, is maturity, learning how to handle
Mhm.
yourself,
Mhm.
being honest. At least I had, someone who was brutally honest with me about it. It's like, yeah, you're addicted to the anger. You're addicted to the self-pity. Get over it.
Mhm. That's so true. When I took my job at Blackish, oh my God, their first season, I was there as their dialogue coach and their dialogue acting coach, and I took it because I wanted to direct television and film, and I thought this is the job I'm going to take. But before then, I was a director of theater, so I was the boss in all the shows I did, musicals, one-person shows,
Right.
dramatic, all of that. Now I'm going to be at another level that's not in charge. And I remember days I get in the car and I might cry. Just a couple of times I cry and go, am I doing the right thing? And then I continue on and I get upset with the way people were then, I felt treating me. They weren't being unkind, but I wasn't part of that upper echelon anymore.
Right.
Then I was like, I'm learning so much. I'm getting paid to shadow. And it's why I took it. It wasn't easy, but I kept a good attitude about everything I did. And I watched and I asked questions. And it was such a nice turnaround when 8 years later I directed one of their episodes
Yeah.
and got nominated for a couple of awards. It was wonderful. And I have since transferred to doing more acting now. And that's so wonderful. It's my first love. I love it. But it's so when you think about those hard times and how much better I even am as an actress for sitting in those chairs and speaking to those people and watching those scenes over and over again and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I wouldn't give that up for anything. But if you had asked me before that, if that's what I want to do, oh no, I want to skip through and make things easier. I think we would all say that, but that's where the juice is. Wherever you need a little shit to
The
put on
struggle is
on
the struggle
plants
is
to make
the
them grow.
yeah, struggle is the preparation.
Yes, it is.
You don't have strength to run things without some form of struggle. And if
Friction
the
helps
once,
to
you know,
sharpen.
I mean, how does a muscle grow? You've got to
Mm-hmm.
resist. First you can barely lift anything,
Mm-hmm.
and then it happens.
So true. So you're a manager. You're doing things. Where are your clients now? Where are they? Are you doing any international work as you wanted to?
Quite a bit, as you may know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have clients in South Africa. I have them in Nigeria, London, Spain, London, Barcelona, Paris,
Mm-hmm. And you still speak
where,
French.
oui, je parle français toujours.
Ah, bon, bon, bon. I did that real well, didn't I? I pronounced it. I know croissant. Oh, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
so
Go
the
ahead.
international thing was always in the back of my mind, and when I got to uh well, I left when I was worked with that manager for a while, and then I started
Oh,
a theater company and began to produce and direct plays, and that led to managing a comedy trio, and we got a television series out of that, and so I stayed attached as a consultant for 3 years to that. They reintroduced me to Roger Guenveur Smith, who I'd met through
lovely,
Lawrence
lovely.
Fishburne.
Oh,
That's how I met him. And he has a body of solo shows and
he's
historically
wonderful.
inspired solo shows. And I took those and had my theater, and we started doing runs. We did a run of one of his shows, and then we developed another one about Huey Newton, and
Oh,
that
that was
toured the
one of my
world.
favorite shows.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was brilliant. I knew you managed Roger. I didn't know you worked on the show with him.
Oh, yeah. All those
Oh,
things from like concept.
oh,
And it's one of those things, again, where we sat down and we're talking about the show and working together. And he said, I want to do a show about Huey Newton. I said, great. Well, I'm from Oakland. I know all about Huey Newton. And his, when we got up and shook hands, a woman had been looking at us, and she came over and she said to Roger, has anybody ever told you you look like Huey Newton?
wow, wow.
So I thought, well, that's a good sign. Let's do
Yeah.
this. And yeah, we did the show, and the show traveled the world. And then
Mhm.
Spike Lee agreed to direct it for television. And that was another great one of those great moments. And then the international part came when that piece was debuted at the Venice Film Festival, and
Oh,
it wound up in 52 other film festivals. But the big
wow.
ones for me were Venice, the
Hmm.
Havana Film Festival. Getting to go to Cuba was incredible,
Mm.
and that's a whole other show.
Wow, wow, Cuba. Yes, I
Cuba
want to
was
go.
crazy, and uh, it won Best Adaptation at Banff. It won a Peabody Award. We got a Peabody Award given to, bestowed upon us by Walter Cronkite.
Oh my.
So that was just like this,
Oh.
incredible beginning to everything. And so that's when I became really like the second phase of being a manager producer. And, we produced a bunch of indies together. And then I started going to Cannes every year. And while there, I met a film finance attorney, and we started a consultancy where we would represent international companies who wanted a foothold in LA.
Mm.
And we would set up meetings and do events for them. And then whatever, we would take a percentage of whatever came out of these relationships that were built for a while. And that's how I got on the radar of a French VFX house called Buff. And Buff is the oldest VFX house in France.
Mm. Mm.
It must be 40 plus years old now. And you'll know their work from Avatar, from Life of Pi, from uh, just incredible films. They've done just extraordinary work for a long time. And they approached me after 1 year at Cannes, and they said, "Do you know anybody who might be able to do this and this and this?" And I said, that could be me. And there's like, we hoped it could be you. So we worked together for 4 years, and
Oh, wonderful.
I represented that company and worked on, basically managed a department of 300 people from LA, and then represented the company, the studio system. And then when I would produce when the work when it, or executive produce the work when we got
Hmm.
it. So it brought all my skill sets together: the French, the contracts, the script reading, the sales, the studio navigation, all of it.
The understanding finances, all of it just
All
came
of that.
right together.
We
Oh,
even we
that's
even
so
advised
awesome.
on the yeah, we even advised on the French film incentive,
Mm.
and gave a lot of advice to the CNC about how to do that. And we were the first ones to receive it.
Mm.
And so we're able to give a check to Marvel Studios for the first Thor.
Oh, wow, awesome. That's awesome,
Yeah.
Stephen. I love your story because so often when we think we're getting derailed, and sometimes, yes, you're coming over here to gather more knowledge that you're going to need. Ergo, no, you're going to be an assistant. Now you're going to be the receptionist. And your father, that was so brilliant of him to not say, "You're right, son, quit that job," but for you to see
Right.
that as an opportunity. And I know there are relationships you created from that job.
Relationships that I still have. And that's
Yes.
the thing. But I think a lot of us are quick to, like, it's like when you're hungry, you don't knock the plate off the table, you eat it,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm.
unless there's flies on it. But that's a different story.
Well, it's something to think of too when you think that, oh, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket and I need to shift to something else, as opposed to everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, but maybe there is something here for you. I always feel
There's
that.
always something. There's always something. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even the French situation was crazy because, I speak French, but I didn't know visual effects terminology. I didn't know anything
Mm-hmm.
about visual effects. And so I went to meet them in Paris. And when I was there, the person that was holding the position quit, like, quit the day I arrived in Paris. And so it went from being an interview to, like, basically the job is yours if you want it. We need somebody to start now. Can you stay in Paris and can you start learning now? And I'm like, yeah, I gotta make a few calls and straighten out a few things, but I'll do it.
How old were you?
And oh, this was like uh, I was not young. It was like 2008
Oh,
when this
really?
happened. Yeah,
Okay.
but this is part of the continuum. And
Yes,
then
yes.
yeah. So we did our thing, and I was like, all right. So I felt like I had an axe in my head because I didn't know anything,
Hmm.
and everything was being spewed out. And it was also I was learning it all in French, and it's like one thing to learn how to speak French and read books and chit chat and talk to people and have philosophical conversations. Another thing to, like, get this technical, terminology into your brain.
Mhm.
So I got home and I was like, all right, how do I start and what am I doing and how am I going to make this happen and blah, 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 blah. So I went to my first meetings and people were looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about, because I realized very quickly that everything I'd learned in French needed to be translated into English. So I had to relearn the vocabulary in English to be able to communicate with Americans. So that was another
Interesting.
humbling, yeah,
And it all
it was
comes
very
together.
humbling. Yeah, it was humbling. I was like, I had to kind of just bend to it. And I think, I was in my 40s. I didn't really, I thought I was like, I know what I need to know. It's like, yeah, well, if you want to go up,
Learn
you're going
more.
to open your mind and learn more and not resist it.
Yes. Stephen, I'm so glad you came in
And
tonight. I love your story. I love your story for what it reflects back to us um, about change that happens in life. And you don't know how it's going to go, but you go with it and you find out how to make it your own. So it's still along with what your plan is for what you want to do.
I feel like the universe is always dealing cards
Mm-hmm. Mm.
every day. There's always some opportunity every day, and you have to be aware of it. It may be big, it may be small. I mean, sometimes I mean, this may sound ridiculous, but sometimes I'm like walking around and I see a penny or a dime on the ground. I'm like, oh, there's some free money.
That's right, man.
There
That's
must be
right.
more coming. Take it.
Take it. So if you're gonna,
Don't be too proud because it trains you to look for the opportunity in every damn thing.
mm-hmm.
You
I,
know, it sounds silly, but I'm like, I don't know.
I like it. I like it. Ina says your worth isn't tied to your net worth. It's rooted in your heart's wealth. Sometimes life's noise drowns out that truth, but in the stillness we find the echo of our enoughness. Honey, that sounds like a
How beautiful
poem.
is that?
That is just gorgeous. That is just gorgeous. Look how you've inspired her with what it said. And it's so true. This road in life just does not go straight. It doesn't go like that. It has, and sometimes it's going there. It's going. I can't say anything, right, Stephen, until Friday, Saturday. Could I say what show I'm recurring on? Saturday,
You got to hold on. Next
Monday.
show, you can tell. You can tell.
Okay, and
Just keep
but
your eyes on the social media, and then everybody will know.
and then everybody will know. Okay, oh, okay. You know, it's so cool to come full circle now at this time because I thought I was done with acting. When you and I got together as client and manager, I was just like, all I wanted to do was direct, and then once it hit me, we're working, we're doing stuff.
I mean, it doesn't mean that we have to give up the other direction, but there's something
Oh no,
good about activating this side of your creativity.
yes.
And also, let's be honest, bringing in money while we're pursuing a long-term goal, which takes a lot of time to achieve.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we're also coming out of a very challenging moment in our business where there weren't as many opportunities. So, I mean, you kind of jumped back in the arena and showed off,
I kind
if
of
I
feel
may
like
brag.
yes. I think you're right. I feel pretty good about that. And the part of it that I wanted to get to that I realized I got caught in my head. Some of that is not giving up on me and my creativity. We shouldn't give up on ourselves. So many times we give up on ourselves too soon, and you never know when that opportunity is going to come to you. your excuse me, your story is so clear about that, to stay the course even though the course looks like this is not what I plotted and planned,
Oh,
but
just
there's
because I'm a
something
stubborn mule?
else in there. And there's that, but to stay with it, and you will get to where you want to go. I was just talking to a friend today who's doing something she totally did not expect to do, completely didn't expect to do, and it is exactly what she wanted to do
Mm.
when she looks at it. And I think that's what's important. Stay with it and don't give up on you, because just because it's not going left like you wanted to, you give yourself a while. You'll have a father who you'll call and will set you on the straight and narrow, a friend, or just your own mind. And as a matter of fact, I have to ask you about your dad. How does he feel about what you do?
It took him a long time to trust it because his story is, I mean, there's a punchline to all of this, which is that when I got to LA and I was working in that agency, Um, I knew he'd grown up in LA in the 40s. He was a child in the 40s and a young man in the 50s.
Mm.
And, that's all I really knew. And I knew that his parents had divorced, and I didn't really know his mother because something had happened in that time when he was a teenager. And, in those days, people did not talk about the past, and you
Mhm.
did not dare probe into grown up business.
That's right.
So to ask about my grandparents' marriage was impossible. And then, luckily, his second wife, who was a magnificent person, who you know just built an incredible family for all of us, and
Mm.
we still miss her to this day.
Mm.
But he, when his mother died in Chicago, he went to bury her, and when he came back, I went to visit him, and he said, "Oh, I brought you something from my mother's things," and I was like, "Well, what would you be bringing me?" She's essentially a stranger. I've read her letters and spoken to her on the phone, but we don't really know each other. And he said, "Oh, well, I guess it's fine." He said, "Just open the box." So I opened this box, and there's pictures of my grandparents in Hollywood in the 1940s. And I was like, "Well, what is this story?" Because, oh, your grandparents, they loved Hollywood just like you. Oh my God. They were having a fine time in Hollywood, and they neglected me and my brother. We wound up having to go live with our grandparents while they ran around to their parties. And your grandmother was the social secretary for Hattie McDaniel, and your grandfather was an accountant whose clients were the black Hollywood folks of the day. And they just thought they were, all that. And he said, then, my father decided to step out and humiliate my mother, and it blew up their marriage and blew up our family. And that's why you never met my mother.
Mm.
And she said, and that is why I never wanted you in Hollywood, but you did it anyway.
Mm.
And I said, this is very interesting to be at the time 27 years old learning this,
Mm.
which would have been very helpful for me to understand why he didn't want me to do these things when I was younger, but they considered it to be none of my business.
Grown folks' business. Got to stay out of it.
Yeah. And then I looked at these pictures, which I will share with you, and I was like, oh my God, it's another world. It was 80 years ago,
Wow.
and the pictures
Mm.
of these uh, parties in the 40s, which were very integrated, which was very radical for that time period. And Hattie's house is still standing in West Adams,
Mm. Oh, yes,
very
yes.
near where, very near where they drove the 10 freeway through,
That was
which
terrible.
nobody knew that was going to happen when they uh, were finally allowed to live there when they broke those covenants. Because one of
Yes.
the things people don't know about her is that she, when she was not on screen, was a very powerful activist and pushed really hard for rights. She was a big part of the NAACP. She fought racial covenants and broke the ones in that area that finally allowed affluent blacks to buy these houses.
Mm.
They didn't know that breaking of that covenant was what helped the city hall to decide to run the 10 freeway through there to open up the west side, which had not been developed yet. So
Wow.
they were like, great, let them have these houses. We will all be moving to the west side, and we will give
Wow.
this area up. We'll drive a freeway through it, and then who cares what happens?
Oh my God. Just,
So all that wealth and all that history.
mm-hmm. Some of it was bulldozed down.
Do you know there's a freeway through the heart of every black community in America?
No.
West Adams, I think they drove a highway through Geary Street in San Francisco in the Western Edition. Oakland, they did bulldoze West Oakland, did the same thing.
Mm.
Selby Dale in Minneapolis, uh, Overtown in uh, Miami,
Atlanta.
Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
Tulsa. I could go on and on and on. It's amazing.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. Stephen, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you were here. with us tonight. It's 10 p.m., 10:04 where I am, and I'm so glad you were
We're just
here.
warming up, baby. Come
Yeah,
on.
no, I know. You're one of my favorite co-hosts. We just chit chat. I love your story because it is inspiring to sit down and to listen and to reflect on the issues of any life of the lives we've had. And if you're young enough to be caught in the muck and the mire right now, let this give you hope. If you're old enough to be back into the muck and the mire right now, let this give you hope. If you're successful in what you're doing right now, let this continue to inspire you because you know it goes like this, and all you got to do is ride the wave. It's the ending, my dear. Is there anything you would like to share with us before we call it a good night?
Yeah, I would just say I'd love to just remind everybody to love themselves and to appreciate who and what they are. And every single person has been filled with all kinds of gifts, and it's important to recognize that. I mean, there's no such thing as an ordinary person. Everybody's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And it takes us back to you are a snowflake, and that is the truth. Hold on. I wanted to do just a little something, and where did it go? Let me bring it back in. And then I went in and out. Doggone it. Where did it go? Okay, it's up here. I want to bring in, just before you go, I just love this song. I just want to tell you, thank you for coming, Steve. Well, night.
My pleasure.
I'll talk to you very soon. You've blessed us again.
Talk to you
I
very
know you'll
soon.
be back.
Thank
Bye,
you.
sweetheart.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Wow. The simple stories about life, that the complications we have, heartbreaks, challenge, moments when we speak up for ourselves, moments when we speak up for ourselves, for the reaction. I love what Stephen said about loving yourself. Trust yourself. Honor yourself. Forgive yourself for the shit you're gonna do, because you're gonna do some shit. Until the day you die, you're gonna be apologizing to something you did. Because that's what it is. Or you're gonna look at something you did. But you're still okay. So continue to love yourself. Adore you. So glad to have you guys here with me always on Wednesdays. Here's where you come. Our show, The Vision is Possible. Facebook, Instagram. We've got a website. It's everywhere. And here's my information where you can find. I own a lot of buildings. I own a lot of buildings. Just so I'm glad you're here. I'll see you next Wednesday. Beautiful.